Hello, my dears. Hero here. I got a Mario up for this one.
Automatic.
Nintendo Switch Online, that's the NSO. Is finally worth its IMO. MK8 DLC, look, it's Birdo. And most importantly, they added Gameboy. Yo. Mario NSO. Oh. That's enough of that. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I do all kinds of nonsense here, but mostly, I just spout my silly little opinions about Nintendo. A gaming company that is, at the end of the day, still a corporation, still trying to get the money out of me, all the monies.
Money!
But I like them, I got opinions. I'm spitting them into the ether, and if they've somehow made it to you, please consider liking the video and subscribing, it really does help. What am I subscribing for? Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, shall we? The Nintendo Switch Online service has always been pretty lackluster, with just a small selection of games from the NES library, eventually the SNES library. The games offered through the Nintendo Switch Online service in the very early days was worse than what was available on the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. Not only that, but the NES Classic and the SNES Classic came out before the NES and SNES Online, respectively. Albeit, it was hard for a while to get your hands on those retro console re-releases. And over time, we haven't really gotten this massive library of classic NES, SNES titles. Nintendo has drip-fed us games inconsistently, and compared to something like Xbox, Games Pass is a laughable subscription game service compared to what Nintendo was doing in the Wii U 3DS era. Them making their old catalog of games accessible they've done a poor job in the Switch era. Eventually, Nintendo 64 was added to the expansion pass of the Nintendo Switch Online service, which is kind of cool, but the Nintendo 64, though a cherished console for many, doesn't have that many games in its library. Oops, totally forgot they also added the Genesis to their expansion pass at the same time they added the Nintendo 64. They also released modern controllers of the Genesis controller and the N64 controller to give a authentic gaming experience. So yeah, as the timeline is progressing, the online service is picking up steam. It's getting better, slowly but surely. Emphasis on slowly. So yeah, I buy the base edition of the NSO service because I just want to be able to play Smash Bros. And Mario Kart and other games online. It's a pretty cheap fee, even for the family plan, to subscribe to the Nintendo Switch Online service. But how much is Nintendo Switch Online? If you're getting it for yourself, you're just an individual, getting the base plan is just $20 a month, nice and cheap. If you want to upgrade to the expansion pass and get all its benefits, that then becomes $50 a year. Still not breaking the bank. Now, if you have a family plan, and the family plan is pretty nice, you can share it with friends, and in my experience, Nintendo's been pretty lax, don't tell, but it's not necessarily just for families. If you keep it on the DL, you can share that with just a couple of friends of yours that have Switches. Splitting the cost, that then becomes pretty cost effective. Base plan, you're now looking at $35 a year. And for the expansion pass, if you have a collective of hardcore Nintendo fans, $80 a year is the most you'll be paying for a Nintendo Switch Online subscription service. Hope that helped. Happy gaming. It's just another subscription service, and I wish the library of classic games was better. it would make it a lot more hype. But I've always just viewed the NES and SNES online apps as gimmies. I don't really play them all too often. I play most of my retro games through other means. So now, unless you mod a Wii U, which is a viable option, not a legal option that I can endorse, but modding a Wii U to have retro consoles is another option. When I can, I like to play on original hardware. I've been a Nintendo fan for a long time. I've acquired a lot of original hardware, but I get the idea of, with a subscription service, having a library of retro games that many people, they don't have access to these older consoles. That is a good thing to have, and for the cost of, I'm already paying to play online games anyway, plus I get some old titles if I'm interested. It's nice in concept, but what I'm getting at is we could have gotten more. Nintendo has such a treasure trove of IP that it's kind of a joke that they don't put more games out on the Nintendo Switch Online. They don't put more games, they don't do it more regularly. They've always just been bad at running the service. From a consumer perspective, I'm sure they have their reasons, and it is to make money, and I'm sure they're making money, otherwise they wouldn't keep drip feeding us content. But finally, after years of drip feeding content, they finally made their way to something very, very exciting. We got Game Boy, we got Game Boy Advance. They're coming to the online services, and oh my gosh, that is pretty awesome, considering, going back to that accessibility argument, a lot of these retro handheld titles are getting up there in price. Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, even if you have a Game Boy lying around, that's awesome. But buying Minish Cap on eBay, at least complete in box, will run you up to like $300. Then there's like accessibility in terms of the magic of putting Game Boy games, old portable games, on the TV. Nintendo has played with this concept since as early as the GameCube, when they made the GameCube player, a periphery attachment that would attach just to the bottom of your GameCube. It would make it more tower-like. I've never even gotten my hands on one of these, but it attaches to the bottom and you're able to then put your Game Boy games in the GameCube. You put a special disc in the GameCube, and then boom, your Game Boy games on the TV. Super cool. My friend growing up had one, and it was lit. I would bring my Game Boy games so I could put them on the big TV. I played Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2 that way. Oh, good times. If that came to the GBA Advanced service, I don't think it will, but wow, that would be something. That's a tangent. Going back to Mario. Now, if you don't have a Wii or a Wii U, which you've already downloaded retro games onto, because those systems were really good about preserving their retro titles. Unless you already have one of those systems with those games downloaded on it, the eShop for Wii, Wii U, 3DS, those are all gone. Those are all closed. The only legitimate way to put your Game Boy games on the TV, if you don't already have them on your Wii U, is to track down some sort of Game Boy player. Attach it to your GameCube if you have one, and boom, you got Game Boy games on your TV. That's a lot of steps you gotta take. That's a lot of extra stuff you gotta buy. Now, eventually, the months of paying for a subscription service always add up. The subscription service model is just, it makes us spoiled and reliant, and it's not a good thing, because it's very hard to separate yourself from the subscription service model. But I'm subscribed to so many subscription services. I am critical of them, but they are a major part of my life, like with most people. And that's why Nintendo is able to make a subscription service that's really subpar, because they give it to you for cheap, and people are just like, yeah, it's just another subscription service. Oh, the normalization, it hurts. So yes, your months of using Nintendo Switch Online will add up. That being said, subscribing to Here Are the Main is 100% free. That being said, the access to Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, some that are really hard to track down, and being able to play them both portably again, as originally intended, and on the TV. It's so Switch, it's a long time coming. When I was watching the Nintendo Direct with my roommate, we were both like, finally. It just makes sense, and it's awesome. And when they announced it, they're like, it's happening today. Got a bunch of bangers for both Game Boy and Game Boy Advance dropping. Plus, we got more bangers on the way. They didn't say anything about Pokemon games coming to the service, but let's keep in mind that Pokemon Day is coming right up at the end of the month, and it would be kind of a cool announcement for Pokemon Day to say, Pokemon games are coming to the Switch Online service. So that's just my prediction that on Pokemon Day, that's when we'll get some sort of insight into Pokemon being on the NSO. I think it's coming. They got Game Boy on the Switch. They gotta do it, right? One of the games coming to the Game Boy Advance Online is Kururin, which for people who play Smash Bros, when you throw out the trophy, and you get that bar that spins around and tries to push you off the stage. That's from this niche platformer that I don't know if it made it outside of Japan, but even if it did, it's very hard to find. Not many people played it. But the original game that it's from, the idea is your thing is constantly spinning around and you have to navigate these tight puzzles, which kind of remind me of some Sonic special stage. And you have to navigate and successfully not hit the walls, make it to the goal. It's like a platformer, and kind of you got the idea of the game operation. If you hit the walls, it's bad. It's game over. Kururin. It's reportedly really fun and addictive. I haven't gotten my hands on it yet, but if I convert to the Nintendo Switch expansion pass, if I decide to get that, which I now for once am actually legitimately considering, if I make the move to get the expansion pass, I have that game to look forward to. And for many people to discover this game, and for more people to be able to get to play it and be like, oh, that's what that thing from Smash Bros is. That's just cool, you know? Nintendo should be doing more of this stuff with their Nintendo Switch Online service, and these Game Boy drops are a really promising step in the correct direction. I feel like I haven't been talking at you enough. It's a bad habit. I just get like in the zone and I stare at the base of my microphone. I also like want my voice to be caught. But this is one of those videos that I won't be covering much, so I should be looking at you. And I'm going to look at you as I tell you about my excitement for the Mario Kart 8 DLC Wave 4. When the first wave of Mario Kart DLC dropped, or when they announced it at least, I said it wasn't worth it to me. I was going to hold out and see how the thing developed before I bought onto it. One of my major gripes with the DLC was the lack of characters being added. I thought the inclusion of only new tracks was lazy, especially for Nintendo's biggest moneymaker. I thought adding new characters was an easy choice. And the first character they've decided to add for DLC is coming with Wave 4. It's Birdo. Exciting pick. We love Birdo here. And so, once again, it's promising for the future that as more waves of DLC come out, we'll also get more characters. We've now gotten a couple of really exciting tracks accumulate here. I was really excited when in Wave 3 they announced Maple Treeway. I love Maple Treeway. That's one of my favorites of all time. And in Wave 4, I think it's really cool that we got an original track coming. They're making some new tracks again, and that's really neat. The quality in the early days of the Mario Kart 8 DLC, those first couple of waves, some tracks looked really nice. Some, it was like, are these even finished? And they kind of fixed them through updates. I remember the cars were messed up with Coconut Mall. I don't know what exactly it was, but Coconut Mall was all janked up, and they had to go back and fix that, which is a shame. But they're picking up steam, it's getting better, and if I were to convert to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass now, their Elite membership model. I can now look forward to not just Nintendo 64 games. I can look forward to the Mario Kart 8 DLC, which now has a good amount of tracks to it. It's got Birdo, and I get Game Boy Advance games. They separated base members get the Game Boy games. Everyone gets to enjoy Game Boy games. Also, totally forgot to mention that the Game Boy Online library comes included with Game & Watch games. So in terms of access, that's in the base plan. People being able to try Game & Watch games for the first time, maybe ever, that's really awesome. And the Elite, the expansion pass purchasers, they get Game Boy Advance. I think it's a smart way to split it up. I think it's a good way to give more value to that expansion pass. I know if we're being critical, it's just a way for them to get you to spend more money. It's for you to upgrade your subscription service and pay more over time. We know what they're doing. That being said, I felt they didn't have a reason to validate the expansion pass until now. We also have the Game Boy Advance here. As a whole package, it is really nice, and I am seriously considering, I haven't bit the bullet yet, but maybe if they announce classic Pokemon for the Nintendo Switch Online service, that might be what tips me. We'll see. But then again, I do have one of those modded Wii U's, and I do have most of the titles offered through the subscription service already downloaded. Papa Nintendo would not be happy with that, and I cannot say that is my recommendation to you as the alternative, but for me, I'm actually probably not going to get the expansion pass, even though as a consumer, I definitely see there's a valid reason to consider it. I feel like it finally feels worth it now. For me, I'll just do the one-time payment for the expansion pass, get my Birdo. If you have that option, you have a lot of access to retro systems and can collect. Maybe skip out on a subscription service, keep collecting, have that physical, that original, and just do the one-time payment for DLC, which the expansion pass also offers you DLC for certain games. You could just pay for them once. You don't have to get the expansion pass to get your DLC. So I'm gonna do the one-time payments, and if you can afford to do that, I suggest you do that as well. But I get it, a lot of people, this will be their first time being able to play Minish Cap or Kururin. It makes more sense. They're gonna pay for the expansion pass, maybe only for a couple of months, and then drop back to the base subscription. That's a decent idea. But the future looks bright for the Nintendo Switch Online service. At least as bright as it can get, with Nintendo still being pretty slow at releasing their classic titles. Just have a schedule, man, like every month, every 2 weeks, 1 game, 2 game, like I don't care, just consistency. That's enough rambling from me, I think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch Online service. Do you pay for just the base subscription, or do you pay for the expansion pass? Is it worth it for you to get the advanced games as well as Mario Kart 8 DLC? Because if you have a Switch, you probably have Mario Kart 8. Drop your comments down below. Once again, like, subscribe. We also got a bell that you can ring. And lastly, I'd like to hand over our closing words to fellow Italian, Benito Mussolini. Take it away.
I like puppets.